I'm R.A. Schwartz alongside Rachel Galligan, and welcome to the Winsidr show where it's all about the W. Playoffs, playoffs, playoffs. Round one is done, and we are on to the semis. We got a lot of brooms out in the first round of the 2024 WNBA playoffs and lots to discuss, so let's dive right in. If you like our show, please consider joining our Patreon community, patreon.com/Winsidr. That's patreon.com/Winsidr. For less than a cup of coffee a month, you can directly show support for the hard work we do covering the W. And don't forget to see our amazing staff's written content over at winsidr.com. That's winsidr.com. Welcome back to the show. Very excited. Want to reiterate, make sure you're checking out winsidr.com because there's amazing series previews going down there. There's player profiles going down there. Obviously, our podcast can be found there, but also the most amazing graphics in the WNBA world are there. Now, I always go on a little rant to start the episode. This time, I want to make sure to go on this rant because we forgot to do it last time. In typical fashion, Rachel and I had planned to discuss something going into the episode, and we got distracted because it wasn't very WNBA related. So we got distracted and instead just talked hoops as we do. But it is important, so I want to bring this up. This is officially our 401st episode ever recorded. So very grateful for all of you listeners making what we do possible. I'm grateful for Rachel for dealing with me for that many times. Who would have thought? And in all seriousness, very thankful that we get to shine a light on the W. And like I said, very appreciative for everyone who listens, who makes it possible, even though Rachel and I both still in our mind are like, no one listens. So it's nice that someone does. Anything you want to say, Rachel?
No, I actually, as you were saying that, I was thinking back when we were in the trenches like 5-6 years ago. I remember being so busy in the summertime and pulling up to a McDonald's parking lot, connecting to the Wi-Fi so we could record. I don't know if it was just a regular show, a reactionary show. We were doing whatever we could at that time to talk about the game together. And now look at us in our cool spaces. For those of you who are getting a chance to watch out this video, we're going to put our faces on camera. Wanted to kind of debut our spaces now. We've really invested and had an opportunity to be invested in with just kind of some really cool stuff, being able to have a place where we can record, we can talk WNBA. We've come a long way, my friend. And so when you told me the other day it was 400, I was like, there's no way. I know I wasn't necessarily on every single one of them, but definitely a really big portion of those. So it's been so much fun. It's been such an honor. And yeah, it's fun to look back at those early days, that's for sure.
Well, even if you weren't on the episode with your voice, you were there in spirit, Rachel.
I was there one way
always. Yeah, exactly. You're the voice on my shoulder. Like, oh yeah, you shouldn't say that. The second thing that I wanted to talk about that we were going to announce in our last episode and then got distracted is we're doing a giveaway. We've partnered with Homage. We're giving away a WNBA team hoodie and t-shirt of the winner's choosing. Super simple to enter. All you have to do is email REA@Winsidr. That's ARYEH@Winsidr.com and share with us your favorite WNBA memory. It can be from past years. It can be from this year. It can be from literally anything. We want to hear what your favorite, most memorable WNBA moment was. Share it with us. It can be a video, an audio clip, or a written message, whatever it is. Our staff will then go through it and pick out one that resonates deeply with us. Obviously want to give out, give some cool merch back to the fans, but also a big shout out to our partner Homage, who's been doing amazing work. I'll drop, as in every episode, we always drop in the show notes and description links to our affiliates. Please do check those out. If you're looking for WNBA merchandise, they make the softest. I'm wearing one right now. They make the softest, coolest t-shirts, and I need to get a hoodie because I hear the hoodies are just as soft. And
I don't have a hoodie yet.
Winter is coming.
The shirts are legit. The shirts are.
And the designs are legit too. I had totally forgot how cool the 2023 Aces Championship design was. It's like the trophy on fire. It's really cool.
I love the
You've
All-Star one. That one was cool too.
That was what I was gonna say, is you and I have been wearing that like crazy. Okay, so let's talk WNBA playoffs. Let's talk the sweeping that went down last night and the day before.
A lot of
Real quick,
brooms.
the brooms were out and oof. Um, so the Sun take on the Fever last night. Actually, wait a second. I'm just realizing we didn't talk about the Liberty Dream game from Tuesday, or the Aces Storm game. Also swept the Liberty 91-82. At a point in the first half, it looked like maybe the Dream weren't going to go out without a fight, but it was
Yeah.
too much by the Liberty. They sweep that one 2-0. Then the Aces Storm game, coming off of, and I don't think it's a over the top crazy statement to say, one of the most embarrassing quarters in Seattle Storm history, just putting up 2 points in the fourth against the Aces. They lose the game 76-83. At times it was close, but Rachel and I, we were texting during the game, and the whole time it kind of felt like, why is it this close? Like, it felt like the Aces should have been further along, distancing themselves. And we'll discuss my theories on why in a little bit. And then last night, the Sun take on the Fever, and the Rookie of the Year, Caitlin Clark's historic rookie campaign. Dejanay Carrington gets the announcement that she has won Most Improved Player, hat tip to her. But yet the Sun win 87-81. And then last night, in another epic season finale for a team, the Phoenix Mercury lose to the Minnesota Lynx 88-101. Could that have been Diana Taurasi's last game? She got a standing ovation in Minnesota. If you followed Diana Taurasi's career in the WNBA and the rivalry between Minnesota and Phoenix, you know that that was
It was
a
a special
special,
moment.
special moment. Since 2015, Minnesota, I believe, is 8-0 against the Phoenix Mercury, and they have beaten the Phoenix Mercury more than any other WNBA team has beaten any WNBA team in the playoffs. So when people were giving me some flack for saying Cheryl Reeve's about to do what Cheryl Reeve does best and send Diana Taurasi packing, I was saying it statistically back. Um, Rachel, any thoughts on any of those four series before we jump into finals matchup time?
Yeah, I mean, I think I just kind of fall back to the standpoint of the top dogs of this league really showed. The top four versus the bottom four who got into the playoffs. It's just and you kind of felt like, okay, and I remember when we were doing our predictions headed into this, I felt like we felt like New York was going to sweep Atlanta. Minnesota, I think, we expected them to sweep Phoenix, but Phoenix, has obviously a lot of talent, and you have Taurasi. Anything was crazily possible. I was hoping, just for the sake of the game and for the sake of Diana Taurasi's career, that it would potentially go to 3. I definitely didn't see Phoenix being able to win that series, but maybe be able to steal one. When we talked about the Indiana Fever, Connecticut Sun, Fever were able to beat Connecticut late in the regular season. And I think that first game was an onslaught. That was, a bunch of newbies who'd never been in playoffs before. Definitely came out and responded on Wednesday. But at the end of the day, just not good enough. Just not good enough top to bottom. Don't have enough experience top to bottom. I thought it was possible. Indiana could maybe steal one, but you were going to have almost the perfect game offensively from the Fever, and defensively being able to get some stops. But Connecticut literally just overpowered Indiana. And Las Vegas Aces in Seattle. I mean, once we saw that fourth quarter, I did not expect to see Seattle being able to come back and steal a game, although it was a better performance. So it's just kind of interesting to look at this first round and look at these teams and, who was going to be. It's tough. You're going on the road and you're playing in a better, higher seeded team's environment. And so that's an uphill battle within itself. And you're already, you know, you've already played them so many times. You've already lost them however many times. And so you've got to be so tough mentally. You've got to be able, the pieces have to really fall together for one of these teams to be able to steal a game, let alone advance. And so that's kind of what we were talking about last night, just the format of this first round, best of 3, but the first two games are at that home site. It's tough. It's tough. And it definitely doesn't allow for very many upsets. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that we were dealing with the first round single elimination, which was kind of crazy, absolutely crazy.
Well, but
um,
Rachel, back then with that format, the argument was, yes, it's exciting, but then we're not seeing the top teams, and that's what I
right,
think the give and take
right.
is. We weren't seeing the top teams make it as far, and there was this overweightedness, in my opinion, for the number one, number two seed. You were getting that double bye. It was ridiculous. It
Yes.
wasn't fair.
Yeah.
Um, and wait a second, we got to talk about it, Rachel, Rachel, Rachel. Well, first of all, we'll talk about the bad first and the negative. Kelsey Mitchell with the I think there's like a thing. It's called like Shaqting a fool. It's like when you make like a boneheaded mistake and like Shaq clowns you. I feel like that was the Kelsey Mitchell play last night, where she takes the shot. It wasn't a good shot. She gets the rebound. She's going up for the putback shot, and
Open.
instead of doing it midway in her jump, she just turns around and tosses the ball to the opponent, and that
Yeah.
kind of sealed the game. It was a moment where every time, and I'm not bringing this up to clown on Kelsey Mitchell. I'm bringing it up because just as you were saying, it felt like the Fever were going to need that perfect game
Yeah.
to get offensively. And I tweeted this out during the game. It felt like early in the game, it was the type of game that Fever could win. It was much more of a high speed, high intensity offensive battle, which leads to the Fever having a chance to do it. Because if we know anything, it's the Fever have the offense, the Sun have the defense. So if the Fever's offense could put up a large amount of points, the question was, can the Sun put up an equal amount? On the opposite side, it was, can the Sun's defense stop the
Yeah.
Fever from scoring a bunch? And so it felt like there was moments where the Fever had opportunities, but they were just the compression or the compiling of the game almost put them to a point where they were taking bad shots, they were making boneheaded mistakes late in the game, and every time they had an opportunity to close the gap and truly either I mean, they did tie it late, but to like at that moment in those key last minutes, they had opportunities they were not able to take advantage.
Well, tie game, 3 minutes left, roughly around 3 minutes left, and you're thinking to yourself, "Oh my gosh, it's literally a 3 minute ball game right now." And from that moment on, it was just very evident to me, experience versus not no experience. I mean, that's what it was. That's what those final couple of minutes were. And even someone like Kelsey Mitchell, who's been with this franchise for a long time now, being in this moment is brand new. So, you're going against, you've got a young, inexperienced Fever team, never been in this moment before. And being able to be on someone else's home floor, it's loud, the pressure's on, your back's against the wall. Um, and then you have the Connecticut Sun, where you've got Dewana Bonner, Alyssa Thomas. I mean, they've been in the semis. I think the stat was like for what, the sixth consecutive year now. How experienced the Connecticut Sun are. And it wasn't just, okay, the Kelsey Mitchell, like, because, you know, late in the game, who is going to take these shots? You've got to imagine, okay, Boston's going to be a high efficiency shooter down around the block. But then, Kelsey Mitchell, one of the more experienced players on this Fever team, okay. Or maybe potentially Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark was doing everything she could to try and make something happen down the stretch, but it was more than just that. The missed shots down the stretch, the specific play you're talking about with Kelsey Mitchell, where she had a wide open lane off of her own offensive rebound and just kicks it out. Um, how about the transition bucket where Marina Mabry spots up for the dagger completely uncontested? I mean, how she's not picked up in transition at this point is beyond me. And so it was just breakdown after breakdown after breakdown. And we could get into the ins and outs of what exactly went wrong, what should happen, but it all comes down to experience to me. And the Fever, we said it before, that in my opinion, they had nothing to lose coming into this. Their goal was to make the playoffs. They won 20 games this year. Being able to get their feet wet, be in this moment against a team like the Connecticut Sun. I just think this whole series came down to experience. And I never imagined it would have to be a monumental collapse by the Connecticut Sun. And we would be talking more about that than we would about how good the Fever were. Because if the Fever were gonna win, it was gonna be Connecticut assisting them in that loss, because they do have that experience. They know how to win those games. They're not rattled in those final few minutes. They've been together for such a long amount of time. They've got the fans on their side. It's just all of these things add up and they compile and compound together to what we saw those final 3 minutes. And I'm not surprised. I don't think anybody should be surprised. Still doesn't take away from the season that the Indiana Fever had. But we're going to talk about this regardless of what the team looks like next year, which I think will look vastly different. But this experience, just propels this franchise in the future.
More than anything, they need to focus on getting some defenders on that team. And totally. And honestly, hearing you say that, I've never thought of this before, but I've noticed this trend of the last like 3 minutes or so of a series typically depicts a good presentation of what that team season was as a whole. Just you don't need to look at the rest of you can just watch the last 3 minutes of the series and you can get a sense of
Yeah,
who this team is, what were their issues, what were their shortcomings, where did they succeed, and things like that. But on a positive note, last night we saw some ridiculous. First of all, so the Minnesota Lynx take on the Phoenix Mercury. We know the Phoenix Mercury lack defense. They're a turnstile defensively. We get it. Minnesota drops 102 in game one. Last night drops 101. Not enough being talked about that they just dropped over 100 in back-to-back games. That is impressive. That's a big deal.
sure.
Yes, if you want to put an asterisk because the Mercury, fine. I don't care. Nafisa
That's
MF
the story.
freaking Collier
That's
in
the
game
story.
one, 40 minutes. They win by 7. 40 minutes, 38 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 block, just 2 turnovers, and she shoots 57.9. So 58% from the field and 60% from the 3-point line while only missing 1 free throw. That's 92% from the line. Last night, going into the game, she sets a record for most points scored in back-to-back playoff games with her 38 and then dropping 42. She ties the record for most points
Yep.
scored in a playoff game. She scored 80 points in those 2 games, which is the second most points ever scored in 2 games ever. Liz Cambage has the record with 88. Maya Moore and Nafisa Collier have second place with 80. Last night, she scores 42 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal, a block. I'm pretty sure earlier last night before they checked the stats, or before they updated it, it was 2 steals, whatever. Just 2 turnovers, goes 14 of 20. That's 70 freaking percent from the field and 2 for 3 from the 3-point line, 66% from the 3-point line, and just missed 2 free throws. That's 85% from the free throw line. The efficiency, the output, the way that once she gets the ball and is set, there is nothing no defender on the court could do. They tried Brittany Griner. They tried Natasha Cloud. They didn't even try Diana Taurasi because what would be the point? They literally tried everybody on their team to try and cover Nafisa Collier. Nobody could do it. There's no answer. And while I do expect going into the semifinals, we can't, expect her to be dropping right around 40 a night. What we're seeing is the greatness in Nafisa Collier and that elevation to playoff fee. Rachel, give me a reflection on what we are viewing in that Minnesota Lynx jersey in 2024.
It's always special to see somebody playing the best basketball of their career. Nafisa Collier continues to add to her game. What I love about her is her relentlessness to just not stay the same. Her ability to add something new every single season and not reinvent, but just add new weapons to her arsenal. And just her overall just feel of the game. With her size and now her versatility, being able to play in space more. I mean, just how efficient she is as a scorer. And being able to do that against someone like Brittany Griner. Now, granted, I know the Mercury can't defend a chair, but you can't. Averaging 40 points in the WNBA playoffs, I mean, is unbelievable. And so it's we are getting a chance to witness some of the greatest performances between Asia Wilson, Nafisa Collier, and you could even go down the line to other individual performances this season of some of the great players in this league. But we have to spend some time talking about what she did, the terror that she's on. I definitely don't think Connecticut's going to allow her to. If she can drop 40 against Connecticut, we have to do something, because that is just unbelievable next level type of potential. And if she can do it against Connecticut, the Lynx are winning the entire thing. That's how I feel. But yeah, I mean, unbelievable to watch and love it for her and such a ambassador for our game and what she brings and just her greatness. I hope that people realize the level in which she's performing right now and take a minute and really embrace it. The same thing with Asia Wilson too. That we've been saying all season long, embrace this moment because we're witnessing greatness. And yeah, back-to-back 40-point games, was a free throw away from breaking the playoff record in scoring. I mean, special, just so special. And we've said it time and time again, like, it's not even just her scoring, it's everything that her leadership, her defensive presence, her communication. This Lynx team is completely different when she's not on the floor. And that's how it should be with an MVP candidate. It's the same thing with Asia Wilson. I mean, even when we look ahead at this matchup against the Sun, Fee was out for one of those games. And so, Sun hold the edge 2-1, but like, she didn't play in one of those games, and so that kind of throws things off here. I was a little surprised to go back and look. Oh man, the Sun did beat them 2 times. Lynx only won 1, but you don't have Nafisa Collier. This is a completely different ball team at the end of the day.
And that's the thing, right? Like, so to break it down, they played 3 games in the regular season. 1 game, overtime, 1 point loss. Okay. Next game, Fee gets hurt in the game. She misses a large portion of it. That is a completely
Played
different
about
team.
24 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, to me, that's a wash, right? So you have Sun win 1 game, then you have this wash of a game, and then, in my opinion,
being, I think, a 5-point game, the game that she
exactly
put in.
Yep. And then you see Minnesota win it. So to me, I'm looking at this series as a 1-1 tie. I that's how I view it going into this. I know there's going to be talk about how Connecticut had the series, Connecticut had this hot start, this and that. To me, I'm looking at it as a 1-1 tie. And I'm also looking at it as the context of where we are in the season and what we've seen over the second half of the season. We were talking about this before we recorded. I very much view these teams in opposite ends of the journey. And when I say that, I mean it because Connecticut is a team that for many years has had the continuity, and you add in a Marina Mabry that shakes things up. I don't want to reference the Alyssa Thomas shakeup coming into the playoffs and the Jonquel Jones MVP season because that was different. That was a player who you had experience with, and it messed everything up. So I'm not trying to get, but I want you to understand that you are adding a new element. It's kind of like if you're in a car and you veer off the highway and you hit the bumpies, and it's, you know what I mean? They're trying to steer back into the lane and get back in the lane. Minnesota started the season on the bumpies because they had so many players come in, and now they've gelled, and now they're playing their best basketball, and now they're vibing. So for me, they're at different points in this journey. Can Connecticut win this series? Yes. Obviously, they're a top team. Do I think they're going to? No. Do I think that Minnesota wanted this matchup for the semis? Yes. You want to play against a team that is going to test you. You want to play against a team that's going to challenge you in a different way than the next team you're going to play. And I think Connecticut kind of checks all those boxes. If Minnesota thinks too far in advance and starts worrying about aces in New York, series over, Connecticut's going to win. They have to focus on the opponent in front of them. But I think if you're looking at those three options, Connecticut's the team you want to play right now. You want to kind of sharpen your knives before you go up against the high power offense of New York and the Aces, because neither of those teams are going to give the defensive intensity that Connecticut is about to face you.
Yeah, I mean, the top 2 defenses in the league getting ready to go square off in a best of 5 series. I mean, to me, this is when the WNBA playoffs get interesting now. Having the sweeps and just the differential in, I guess, just sheer talent in the first round and inexperience reared its head. And now we're looking at like, okay, now it's best of 5. Now we're truly going back. We're going from one arena to another arena, home court to home court. Like, there's major opportunity here, and the most consistent team is going to prevail. Now, the craziest thing is, in my opinion, these have been 2 of the most consistent teams this season. You could make an argument that, okay, Connecticut hasn't been playing their best basketball headed into the playoffs. I think they were 6-3 their last 10 games of the regular season. And again, to your point, the Marina Mabry adjustment and trade still can't say enough about how much that acquisition, how much that trade, and how perfect Marina Mabry is for the Connecticut Sun. I mean, it's like a glove. It's perfect. I don't know. And we said it from the start. Like, when the trade went down, I think we had a show and we literally were talking about, I was like, this is perfect. And this actually helps this is going to help Connecticut go further in the playoffs, or at least give them a better chance to, because you've got that offensive firepower, that cold-blooded, ice in your veins type of player. There was nobody on the Connecticut Sun that was like Marina Mabrey. She's a different element. She brings a different element, her scoring element that this team absolutely had to have, and we've obviously seen her shine tremendously here, especially in the last couple of weeks. And the big shot, her ability to elevate this team at the end of game situations, on top of someone like Alyssa Thomas, Dwana Bonner, and this is even with Ty Harris going down. And then you're getting big minutes from Burton, who stepped up, and that was a huge addition as well. I don't want to make light of that. So it's interesting because on one hand, I'm like, man, I look at Minnesota and I am so impressed with this team. They have been by far the most consistent offensively, defensively, their chemistry on the floor, the way everybody steps up in the way that they are supposed to step up. You can just see it. You see it in the beautiful basketball that's being played night in and night out. But Connecticut, I mean, this team's dangerous. This team is dangerous, and although I expect Minnesota to win this, it's not going to come easy. It's not going to come easy whatsoever because of their experience as well and what they can do defensively. Can Connecticut make enough shots? That's, I think, going to
Well,
be the
and
biggest
that's
question.
why I think, to your point, Mabry is such a big addition, because
Yep.
what we see consistently throughout the season with Minnesota is their ability to play great defense, team ball offense, which is amazing, benefits them profusely. But other teams have lacked the ability, due to good defense, to hit that response. When Fee hits a big shot, when Bridget Carlton hits that dagger, when Alana Smith hits that dagger, because those things happen. When the players on Minnesota hit those daggers, the other teams have not been able to respond, in part because of Minnesota's good defense, but also in part with their ability to limit other shooters. The addition of Marina Mabrey to Connecticut, in my mind now, a dagger, if a BC or a Alana Smith or a Minnesota 3-point dagger in 4 minutes left in the game against Connecticut hits it in a way that the Alyssa Thomas layup response doesn't quiet that dagger
Yep.
like a Marina Mabrey deep three does. Sorry, I know you want to say something.
No, and I was just gonna say, I mean, like watching the last game 2 of Fever Connecticut, I kept thinking, how is this not a 15-point game? Well, it was because Connecticut was struggling. They were struggling to score at certain points of the season. That was not a phenomenal offensive output by the Sun. They did just enough. Now they hit shots when they needed to down the stretch, but they were struggling, and that gave Indiana the opportunity to kind of hang around, to go on a little bit of a run, but ultimately Connecticut's poise and defense and shot making ability in the final few minutes sealed this thing. That's going to be the most important thing. Is what I see with the Minnesota Lynx, the Connecticut Sun. These are the two teams that, and I guess you could make an argument for Liberty, but we're not talking about Liberty right now. These teams don't get rattled because of that experience. You could even make an argument that Connecticut Sun are more experienced in this type of situation with who they have on their roster. So, yeah, everyone's talking about Vegas and New York and, oh my gosh, the repeat of the finals. Like, this is the matchup here that, I mean, let's be honest, I'm excited about both. But this matchup here, Lynx and Sun, this is going to be an all-out dogfight night in and night out. It's going to be really, it's going to be gritty. It's going to be tough. You're going to have to there's going to be some tough moments for both teams. You're going to see different defensive schemes. You can't. Neither of these teams is going to allow the other to get comfortable offensively. A lot of switch ups, a lot of adjustments that we're going to see. I don't know. I think I'm fascinated with it. And again, it's going to come down to big shots in big moments and big time players. Who are going to be those players that make those shots?
And side note, because we talked about that midseason move for Marina, I also think the Maisha Hines Allen move was literally planning to play against Connecticut. It was foreshadowing.
That's a
Because
great point.
how are you going to match Alyssa Thomas? How are you going to match Bree Jones? How are you going to match that driving intensity? You need that enforcer. You need that player who has the muscle and size to say, hey, back off.
Yep.
And also to take a little bit of that punishment, as it were, away from your other players. Yeah, just greatness. Okay, perfect segue to the next series that everybody's talking about. Rematch of the WNBA 2023 finals. Las Vegas Aces taking on the New York Liberty. First game on ABC Sunday, 3 p.m. Interesting thing that Rachel pointed out coming into this that I had forgotten about, didn't realize, whatever it was, the Liberty swept the Aces. So so far we've been going through these playoffs and everybody has been, 3-1, 3-1, 2-1, 2-1. Now we're talking about a complete sweep. So this is where it gets interesting because I'm going to be honest, the sweep doesn't mean as much to me as I would think it should going into this series. Rachel, I started off with the Connecticut Minnesota series, so I'm going to let you take this series. Lead us off.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, New York. Okay, they've been at the top pretty much the entire season. But when you look at Las Vegas and just their totality of their season so far, obviously anyone who's been following this has not been a team that has peaked. You could probably make an argument that they are they're closest to peaking right now. I still don't think we've seen them peak and play their best basketball this season. Definitely trending in the right direction, and I think you've got some pieces that are starting to come to the end of this season. 9-1 their last 10 games on a 5-game winning streak. Now currently on a 7-game win streak. So okay, they're trending. Have they peaked? Are they playing their best basketball? What is this team's best basketball? But the first game of the season ended up being on what did it end up being? June 15th. No Chelsea Gray. Okay, that was an 8-point game. Then you had the next one on August 17th. That was kind of more of a 12-point game. I'd have to go back and kind of remember what happened in that matchup. But New York pretty handedly took that one. And then you have September 8th. No, Asia Wilson. She missed. This is one of the first games she's missed. Like I don't even know, some ridiculous amount of time, like hundreds of consecutive games that Wilson's been able to play in. So it is interesting. The one game that this team had everybody together was that August 17th meeting. And that was, and if I'm correct, this team was just like still very much trying to figure it out. And so you've got the aces that are missing pieces. Chelsea Gray's been trying to get back in the flow, playing without Chelsea Gray, playing without Asia Wilson, trying to get everything to connect at the right time. I don't even think this aces team that we see right now, we can look at any of these last 3 meetings as a good metric to kind of judge what this is going to look like. Now, what we can look at is, okay, there's a margin of 8-point victory on average for the Liberty in these meetings. Again, take it into consideration. No Asia Wilson, no Chelsea Gray. So it's going to be really, and through that whole time, New York is just sitting there steady and consistent at the top of the standings, just being better than everybody. It's going to be so interesting to see how the Las Vegas Aces can elevate and come together as a collective unit. Can they do it enough to win a best of five series against the New York Liberty? I mean, the one thing I see is we know Asia Wilson's going to bring it. We know what she's going to bring to the table. I think she's averaging about so far this season 22.5 points against the Liberty. But can you have a consistent output from Kelsey? It feels like to me that there's like a night that Kelsey Plum plays really well and Jackie Young struggles, or Jackie Young plays really well and Kelsey Plum struggles. And then in the meantime, Chelsea Gray's just been trying to get her confidence and her consistency in her shot making ability. She's playing her best basketball this season right now. You can see it. She's shimmying on the ground, some of the passes, like she's getting that groove. Is she 100%? No. I fully expect Chelsea Gray's just knowing her as the competitor and the clutch gene that she has. I expect her play to continue to elevate. But I think what it's going to take for Las Vegas is obviously MVP type of performance from Asia Wilson. I'm not even, it doesn't need to be 40. I'm just saying she's got to do what she does. She's got to bring you 20 to 25 night in and night out. But you've got to be able to have Jackie Young and Kelsey Plum not have these big disparities between their types of performances. All 4 of them have to be good. They have to be playing. They don't have to be perfect, but they have to be really, really good, in order to steal 3 of these games. What do you
Yeah,
think?
look, to win in the playoffs, you need depth. And I'm not talking about going 12
And they
players
don't
deep in
have
your
it.
bench.
And they don't have
Exactly.
it. So,
I'm talking about the 5 players that you start performing and producing the stats that are needed to win, and often that means points. And if you're not going to have points production from, and I feel like I'm beating a dead horse because I've been talking about this with the Aces for so long, you cannot have only 3 of your starters scoring, and you
yep.
can't have 2 of your starters scoring what they typically score or a little bit more, and then 3 of them not. And that's the crux of it for me, right? You know what you're going to get from Stokes, right? So you're not going to get a huge offensive outpour from her, and that's why they have Tip Hayes to try and
Who's
produce
been
that.
huge,
That's why they
and
have
she's going to have to be big.
she's
Had a really big game the first round of this series. She's going to have to be good because inevitably someone's going to struggle. Someone in their backcourt's going to struggle, and so Tip Hayes has got to be able to produce and might have to produce at a higher level, like she did in Game 1.
Alicia Clark too. Another
Yep.
player you need. The reason Vegas is so much more reliant on their bench these games this season is because of what you were saying about Chelsea Gray still trying to get back, still not 100% there. Yeah, she's shimming on the floor, and that should be worrisome for everybody. You should have nightmares remembering 2 years ago that finals run that she did, which was the most amazing thing we've ever seen, right? But at the end of the day, if Chelsea Gray is struggling to score, is if, as you said, Jackie Young and Kelsey Plum are not both going off on the same night, one of them struggling, that means that's another player who's struggling to output offensively. And that's where it starts to worry, because then on the flip side, we're looking at New York. New York's not having that. You have Brianna Stewart, who's putting up points per game. You have Jonquel Jones, who, yes, there's been some games we can talk about in Minnesota and the kryptonite of all of that, but that's kind of Jonquel Jones is still producing as she should. Sabrina, really, really hot at a certain point, cooled off a little bit, still really hot, averaging 26.5 in the playoffs right now. You have, excuse me, you have such depth on this team, and I'm only talking about the three starters, or the big three, right? We're not even getting into Laney. We're not even getting into Slew.
Right.
We're not even getting into
Bebic.
Fibich.
Right.
So like, for me, when I look at this team, when I watch what this New York Liberty team can do, I get concerned because they are so even keeled. Now, I when I say concerned, it's two edge. On the one hand, I'm concerned for the Aces. How are you going to handle that even keelness? On the other hand, if I'm looking ahead, I get concerned because that was almost an issue in their last playoff run. That's always been an issue with Jonquel Jones deep in the playoffs. And so I don't think I have so many questions for the Liberty, or for the Aces, specifically one or two questions for the Liberty. Whereas in the other series, I think it's pretty much played out and we understand it. This is going to be a matchup that maybe will make us want to go best of seven, if I'm being honest.
I think both of them have that potential, really, honestly. I mean, I'm just going to predict it because I'm going to speak it into existence because we want it, that I think that both of these will go to 5. But back to New York Liberty, it's so interesting when you look, when Sabrina Ionescu is playing the way she's playing right now, averaging almost 27 points per game and shooting it so efficiently, and has been next level, 45% from the 3-point line. If Sabrina's going to maintain this type of production, I don't see how Las Vegas can win this series. And you're expecting that steady consistency from Brianna Stewart, Jonquel Jones, everybody else on this team who plays their role exceptionally well. I think Sabrina's the X factor in her scoring ability. If she struggles, I think New York is vastly more vulnerable. I kind of look at it this way: New York is being chased. Like they should win this. If they don't win this, I think that they're beating themselves. And when I say they should win this is not a knock on Las Vegas Aces. I'm just talking the totality of what we've seen from them this year. At the end of the day, even last year, the stars had to align. Everything had to align perfectly for them to be able to get their second championship. They got lucky. There was even injuries down in that final game. Enough people are able to step up and get it done, which was amazing within itself. How Las Vegas secured that last year. Now you don't see a Liberty team, knock on wood, that's banged up. They've got the depth, they've got the scoring, they've got the a little bit more consistency with each other. They've been in this moment. These teams know each other exceptionally well. If New York can't get to the finals again, it's because, God, I feel bad saying this, but they didn't do enough. They beat themselves. Something happened within this team because the talent is there and the experience is there. Now, I think that Vegas will have some in this series, some epic performances, from obviously Asia Wilson. I think you could even say Chelsea Gray, Kelsey Plum, Jackie Young. But they're still trailing. They're chasing. They have to go get this thing. They're going to have to be
Mhm.
so damn good and elevate their play to the complete next level that we have not seen this season in order to steal this best of five. And to go along with that, New York's going to have some really tough moments, and they're going to be kicking themselves if they allow that to happen.
Oh, I'm very much with you on that. And I think you can even go to the extent where it seemed like you were teasing this, Rachel, but you didn't want to go that far. So I'll go that far. I'll say it would be a disappointing season for the New York
For
Liberty to
sure.
lose in the semifinals to Las Vegas Aces. They've consistently been the better team in the same sense of, look, we talked about this before. The Connecticut Sun historically have had disappointing seasons in, the playoffs in deep runs like that. So I think it's yeah, like the Liberty should win this series. They have the tools. They've retooled to be the better team. So
Right.
when I look at it, I'm just like this no holds barred.
But
This is
at the same
actually
time,
perfect.
real quick, one more point. You do
Yeah.
have the two-time defending champs and the greatest player in the world in Asia Wilson. And so it's not like I'm saying, oh, the Aces are that much further behind. I think we're going to see a matchup we haven't seen out of these two, you know, yet this year. They're going to have to play at their highest level, both teams, in order to go win this thing. And my question is, again, we've seen it from New York. Maybe they can take it to another level, but that other level, the margin of other level elevation is much greater with Vegas. And I'm excited to potentially see, can Vegas put it together here for 3 games to get back to the finals?
And this is perfect because we're ending it right at the 42-minute mark to honor Nafisa Collier's 42 points scored last night. Rachel, I appreciate you. Who's the GOAT?
Just for the sake of it, and we don't know what's going to happen, and who knows. I was getting emotional last night. Diana Taurasi, congratulations on such a phenomenal career. You have absolutely changed the game, and I am honored. We are honored to have been able to witness it.